Okay, going to Haggai chapter 2.
Haggai 2.
Could Pastor Steve please explain Haggai chapter 2, specifically verses 11 through 23, or maybe a short overview of the book of Haggai? Just trying to understand exactly what it all means. I feel like I understand chapter 1, but then chapter 2, verses 11 through 23 kind of confused me. Could you help out with Haggai chapter 2, Pastor Steve?
Okay, chapter 2, starting in verse what?
11 through 23.
11 through 23, okay. Let's see, on the 24th day of the 11. Thus says the Lord of hosts, now ask the priest concerning the law, saying, if one carries holy meat in the fold of his garment, with the edge he touches bread or stew, wine or oil, or any food, will it become holy? The priest answered and said, no. If one who is unclean because of a dead body touches any of these, will it be clean? The priest answered, it shall be unclean, or will it be unclean? It will be unclean. So is this people, and so is this nation before me, says the Lord, and so is every work of their hands, and what they offer there is unclean. Okay, when when you're looking at the book of Haggai, Haggai is basically a rebuke to the people of Israel because they're not finishing the temple. And so in the first chapter, what Haggai is doing, actually what the Lord is doing through Haggai is basically he's rebuking them for their indolence, their laziness in not building the temple, and their excuses for not building the temple. It's not time for God's temple to be built, and so God lets them know that because they've been unfaithful and they have put their own needs before what he would like to be done, he's taken what they've sown and they bring in little. You eat but don't have enough. You drink but you're not filled with drink. Clothe yourself. But no one is warm. He who earns wages to put into a bag with holes. And that's that is a great passage for anybody that would put their own needs before their walk with God. And obviously it has issues to do with tithing and taking care of the work of God and that kind of thing. It's a great passage for that. But in the context, it's talking about the completion of the temple. When you get to verse 11, you're talking about the disobedience of these people, and the fact that God is looking at their disobedience and seeing it as being unclean. And what he does here is he uses an illustration of clean and unclean to make the point that these guys are not walking in holiness, and again he's rebuking them for this. You can see this in some of the previous verses, in the sense that God wanted them to be involved in this whole ministry of bringing about the temple. He talks about in verses 15 through 19 the fact that there are still people who are obedient to the Lord in the situation. Let me talk about the clean and unclean thing. When he says if one carries holy meat in the fold of his garment, what he's talking about there is meat that comes from a sacrifice. And so priests were allowed to take portions of the sacrifice and feed it to their family and eat it themselves. And so I would bring in a sin offering, for example, and the priest took a portion of that sin offering and he could take it to his family. And that would be holy meat. And so if he takes that holy meat and he puts it in the fold of his garment, he's carrying it, and with the edge he touches bread or stew, wine or oil, or any food, will that food become holy? And what he's talking about is you take the holy meat and touch it to something that is not sanctified, will that become holy? And the answer to that is no. So what then Haggai says, if one who is unclean because of a dead body touches any of these, will it be unclean? And so somebody that's unclean, if they touch the holy meat or anything, does that stuff become unclean? And the answer to that is yes. And so, basically God's talking about the fact that, you got a situation here where there are holy people who are holy, there are people who are unholy, there are people who are clean, there are people who are unclean, and the the unclean people are not cleansed by clean people. Those things that are unholy are not cleansed by things that are holy. What cleanses something that's holy is the fact that it's been given over wholeheartedly to the Lord sacrificially. And what Haggai is doing here is he's comparing the nation itself. You got people who are unclean, and they're not going to be cleansed by hanging out with the people who are clean. And then you got those who are obedient. When you get to the last portion, it's basically a prophecy of end times. It says, "And again, the word of the Lord came to me." And you got to see there that what's happened is there's a change in the prophecy. So starting in verse 10, you've got one prophecy that goes all the way down to verse 19. And then in verse 20 through the end of the chapter, you got a second prophecy there. And he says, "And again, the word of the Lord came to me, came to Haggai on the 24th day of the month, saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, saying, I will shake heaven and earth. I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms. I will destroy the strength of the Gentile kingdoms. I will overthrow the chariots and those who ride in them. The horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. In that day, says the Lord of hosts, I will take you, Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, says the Lord, and I will make you like a signet ring, for I have chosen you, says the Lord of hosts." And basically what he's doing with Zerubbabel is he is commending him for his obedient heart in his desire to rebuild the temple. And God is letting him know that he's going to be blessed because of that he's going to become like a signet. At the end of the book of Malachi, it talks about those who are God's jewels, that God makes jewels of people. And that's basically what he's saying of Zerubbabel. God sees people who are talking about him and who are honoring him. God sees it, it's written in a book, and God says, I'll make them my jewels in the last day. And so he's doing the same thing with Zerubbabel here. So hopefully that's
Yeah.
clear as mud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.